We've heard it all before, haven't we?
Gary North.
Which is the enemy of science, progress, and reason.
You know, if you go on a podcast that's dedicated to trashing me
Ninnies.
and Tom Woods and all of the people who have fucking gotten, thrown their support behind you.
Ninnies.
That's not the time to go there and throw Gary North under the bus.
Think about it. You're pooping at home every day.
No penis.
Why not treat yourself with a little respect?
Small penis.
Your balls will thank you.
No functional penis.
The Fakertarians podcast.
Episode
14.
Prepare to set fire to the index card of
Paleo podcasters.
your daily dose of liberty education starts here.
The Fakertarians podcast.
Folks, if you're like me, one of the most demoralizing things is when someone utters the truth.
Hey everyone, welcome again to the Fakertarians podcast. This is episode 14. I'm your host, John Hudak, along with Jeremy Kantorowicz. Today we have on Jeff Jagoe. How you doing today, Jeff?
How's it going, John?
Pretty good. So before we get into things, we're going to talk about a few different things. A lot of stuff centered around Trump. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself politically, like in terms of your views on libertarianism, how you got into libertarianism?
Well, we could say that I started off, not paying attention to politics much, until about the fourth grade. And that was when what happened? 9/11. So right there, I kind of just started watching the news, paying attention to the politics, and got a little brainwashed as you could say, a neocon. I was a George Bush fan for, my early days. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that happened, and I was like that probably up through middle school. Went to high school. High school started to question some things, 9/11 conspiracy theories floating around, like, oh, maybe it wasn't just some terrorists that decided to hijack some planes. Maybe there's some other things involved there. And I just started to think more, smoked weed for the first time. That kind of changes a lot when you're told, through DARE, holy shit, this is a terrible drug. And then you smoke weed and you're like, oh, this is pretty great. Why was I told that this is awful my whole life? And you start to question the laws and you start to question the government as a whole there. And that's when I kind of became, fell into libertarianism. I actually, met you, John Hudak, as my roommate at UConn. We were going for political science, and there were some great talks there in the Busby dorm. And a lot of those shaped my views. I started watching Adam Kokesh, Jeff Berwick back in the early days of Dollar Vigilante and Adam versus the Man and that kind of shaped my views and became a libertarian.
All right. So in terms of this election, are you voting for anyone?
I haven't decided if I'm going to vote. I haven't voted for any presidential election or actually any election in my life. And I'm registered to vote. I've been registered as a libertarian. And I haven't decided if I'm going to vote. There's a couple things that I might think about doing, but
so we've obviously go on.
I just haven't made a definite decision yet.
So we've obviously had discussions on this before, but I'll just ask the question: between Trump and Biden, who would you say you prefer?
Absolutely Trump. That's not even a question.
So,
and how about you, John?
I'm not a fan of either of them, honestly.
I know, but that's not the question. The question is, who would you prefer between Trump and Biden?
If I had to go with one, I'd go with Biden just to change things up and then change things up again in 2024. But I'm not a fan of either of them.
Do you think that Biden's really changing things up from anything we've had before Trump for the past? We had the Clintons, we had Bushes, we had Obama, and I feel like the Biden administration is just a repeat of all of that. And I don't think the Trump administration is. And I think,
you don't think Trump's equally terrible?
I mean, I don't think he is in that group of people.
But what does that mean?
I think that there is an establishment. I think that they're working together, and I don't think that they like Trump, and I don't think they like what he's doing. They're trying to get him out, and they're trying to get their foot back in the door with the Biden administration.
So does the fact that they don't like Trump mean Trump is any better than them? Or is it just two shitty groups of people fighting each other?
There are two shitty groups of people fighting each other, but I would prefer the Trump group personally. I'd rather less taxes, more freedom when it comes to Second Amendment.
More public works projects building border walls?
I mean, hopefully less public programs in general.
But what about the border wall?
The border wall.
That's a pretty big one. I mean, there's eminent domain involved. There's huge amounts of money involved. There's the fact that they're stopping people from crossing the border. Like that's a huge thing.
It is, but I mean, there's so many facets of government, and like you got to pick and choose, I guess, if you're going with Biden and versus Trump. I mean, I would love if like some great libertarian free market anarchist jumped in and decided, hey, let's abolish government. If he could do that, that'd be great. But
do you have a problem with Trump's immigration policies?
Trump's immigration policies, I mean, I don't pay too much attention to them, to be honest, but I don't know how they're much different than Obama's immigration policies or any other immigration
do you have a problem with the idea of building a border wall, keeping people, people from crossing the border?
I believe that a border is an arbitrary line drawn on a map by a government. And I think that taxation is a big factor here because you got this arbitrary line and you got this government that's saying, hey, everybody inside this arbitrary line is mine and I'm going to extort everybody. And then you have all these people and we're going to give you a little treat for being extorted. And that's whatever public benefits you get from paying your taxes that really you don't get fully what you paid for. But so then you got these people coming in and they're not paying taxes or they're not, they don't have a social security number if they're an illegal immigrant.
So your issue with them is that they're not victimized enough?
Not necessarily. I just feel like if you're going to, I really think that taxation needs to go and before you could just open up the border and let everybody flood the system.
So before we end taxation, you want to use taxation to stop people from freely coming in. You want to use violence against peaceful people. But
no, I don't want to
no
attack them or use violence against them.
How do you stop them without at least the threat of violence there?
You stop attacking the people that are already in that arbitrary land.
What do you mean?
So you have to just stop attacking people inside the land by stop making them pay taxes, Well,
I mean, I agree with you on getting them to stop paying taxes, but I don't think that's a reason to victimize immigrants until then.
I mean they.
Go
ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. Well, I mean, when it comes down to undocumented immigrants and taxes, in reality, they do pay taxes. You've got local taxes. There's even some that do pay income taxes through what's called, I believe, an INT, and I forget what the number or the name of the ITIN. That's what it's called. That you can actually obtain through the IRS to actually pay taxes. Generally, it's something they do because they, if the chance to ever become a legal immigrant arises, they can actually prove, documented, that they have paid taxes on income they've earned in the U.S. So, I mean, them paying taxes and taking from the system really doesn't end up holding very much water, because they do pay taxes, and if anything, they're taking less from the system because they're not entitled to welfare benefits for the most part outside of emergency Medicaid from the federal government. States, there's a little bit of a different level of what they may be entitled to there, but not necessarily from a federal standpoint. They are paying in. Heck, help shore up Social Security and Medicare itself.
Yeah, what I'm basically saying is abolish the border, abolish taxes, abolish the government.
I agree with you, but do you think one needs to happen before the other? Like, let's assume for a second that the taxes are here to stay for another, I don't know, let's just say another 100 years. No, but let's assume that taxes are here to stay and the state's here to stay for at least 100 years. What would you want to do with the border in the meantime?
I don't know. Just let it live as an arbitrary line.
But should people be able to cross that arbitrary line?
No.
Why?
As long as the people inside of the line are getting robbed, I don't think so.
Who's robbing them?
The government.
So is the government the people crossing the line?
No.
So why shouldn't the people crossing the line be able to cross the line?
I guess they should, but they should just be given a Social Security number at the border, and they should be inputted into the system to get robbed as well.
I guess I can take that over the other position of just stopping them. I don't want to.
I don't want to stop them. I'm currently in a relationship with an Ecuadorian immigrant, and we're currently going through the immigration process, and it's shit. So I know the whole thing, but she's a big Trump fan herself.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you do have some experience with it. Not some. Obviously more than I do. And yeah, it is. Is it? Does it almost seem impossible, like camel through the eye of a needle kind of work to go through it?
Yeah, and I see on her side where it sucks, because it's like she can't work at many places because most places ask for a Social Security number before they even work. And she wants to pay taxes and she wants to work at anywhere, but she has to find someone that's willing to go under the table and then pay taxes on top of that. But, yeah.
So the issue is the fact that the government doesn't let them work above the table, not that they're in here in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to some other stuff about Trump. We can come back to the border, the concentration camps on the border, or the border wall, or whatever we want to talk about at some point. What do you think of the fact that Trump has engaged in more drone bombings than Obama?
I didn't know that. That's a fun fact.
Yeah.
But
that's what all the data I've seen says. If you can find something that disputes it, I'm willing to reconsider it, but that's what I've seen. It'd
be interesting to know the dates of those and when they happened and stuff. I just curious.
Would you have a problem? Assuming what I'm saying is true, does that change your opinion on Trump at all? Like your favorability towards him or anything like that?
No, not at all. I'm just wondering if that happened maybe in the early part of his presidency, or if that's happening in the later part of his presidency. I don't know anything about it, so I'm just asking.
If it was earlier, do you think he's changed his foreign policy? He had that assassination in Iran. That was within the last year or so that almost started a war.
That's pretty wild.
Beginning of this year. It feels like it was so long ago.
Yeah, who knows what's going on with years with everything right now. But do you have a problem with Trump's foreign policy with that?
Yeah, it's fucked up. Governments are awful.
And what about Trump?
I just want to know what is any different now than what was happening before? Not much, right?
it's the same idea, but if he's stepping up, like Obama was bad enough on his own, but if he's stepping up drone bombings, that's a problem. And
Yeah, that's for sure a problem.
okay, so then what about Trump wanting the whole thing with banning TikTok and then wanting the U.S. Treasury to have like a portion of a sale that he's enforcing? Do you think that's an issue?
I think social media companies in general are a big, hot topic issue with all the censorship that's been going on. You guys are pretty familiar with it. I know.
Yeah, for anyone
recently
who doesn't know, we lost our personal Facebook accounts the other day. We're trying to get them back, but we don't know why. They just got taken down.
I just lost my Instagram account yesterday. Also,
Yeah, you told me about that.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, I sell just merchandise through it's a company, and we sell all different shit from Bitcoin masks, mostly Bitcoin masks and hats and stuff like that, cryptocurrency related stuff. But then had a lot of hot sales on my Boogaloo items, and I think that's what gained some attention, and that's what did the censorship. But
in terms of Trump, do you see his whole banning TikTok thing as a big deal? Do you want and we can expand this to Facebook and Instagram and all that. Do you want the government to take some kind of action?
No, I'd like the people to take action, and I'd like them to walk away from these social media giants that are really controlling their lives, controlling the way they think, taking their data. And I would like people to walk away from them and go to alternatives like Hive, which is a distributed network for content creation. It's on a blockchain. People post. You actually own your account. No one could stop you from posting anything, no matter what. Like, you just share whatever you want. There's no censorship. Anybody could host their own UI on the Hive blockchain. You guys could be posting this stream on multiple different Hive UIs from 3Speak to DTube, and actually earning cryptocurrency for this right now. I'm actually recording it to post it there later.
Nice.
But I mean, like, so I mean, I see people in the chat that don't like this kind of stuff, but I mean, it's the answer. You're gonna either continue to give your data away to Mark Zuckerberg and these social media giants, and they're just going to continue to push their own political agenda on the population, or you're going to walk away and use third-party or alternatives that are completely distributed. There's no central company that controls it. There's no central company that could shut it down. It's just people posting on a network, and it's distributed and free.
Okay, I mean, I don't know how effective they'll be and how ineffective they'll be, but as long as you don't have an issue with, or as long as you're not advocating for Trump to ban something or the government to step in.
I don't think government banning anything is good ever, like
including border crossings.
But when they do, what it usually does is it creates people making ways around those bans, and it actually progress happens when government creates bans because people find ways around it. And like, you look at like the Silk Road and Bitcoin in general, their existence were created just because of governments doing terrible things. And like
that's true.
These technologies we're getting are the results of governments, like torrents and like all this shit. Like
with sometimes there's victims in the process with that too. I wouldn't like go around advocating for government to ban things. I mean, Silk Road's a good example of that.
Yeah,
there's a guy spending his life in jail right now.
Yeah, it's terrible. Free Ross, freeross.org. Anybody watching this should definitely check it out, sign the petition, and maybe even think about donating some Bitcoin to Ross. Get him out.
Okay, so moving on to some more Trump issues I was going to highlight. What do you think about his tariffs?
Tariffs suck. Taxation is theft. It's on the hat.
Okay.
Make taxation theft again.
Seems like it seems like an easy one. Then there's that time he said that he was looking into 3D plastic guns being sold to the public, and he said it doesn't make much sense. Do you think there's the whole bump stock ban, obviously. Do you think Trump's gun policies are up to par?
I mean, the greatest part about it, there's no way to stop the 3D plastic guns getting made and sold. So.
Oh yeah, there's no way to stop it ultimately. I mean, there's ways they can slow it down, but
it's a cat that's out of the bag, and there's no stopping it.
Do you think Trump's an issue? Oh, go on, Jeremy.
Yeah, I would say, but it does. I mean, it is a ban that creates victims as well, because now you've got federal agents looking to knock down.
Yeah, I'm definitely against it for sure.
Cases.
Go. Okay. I encourage people to go get a 3D printer and try it out themselves.
What do you think about the time that Trump had protesters tear gassed so he could do a photo op? And we can move into more about the protests, because I know you knew we were going to get there.
I mean, I don't know.
You don't know about a president gassing protesters for a photo op?
I don't think that gassing protesters is ever the right thing, especially if they're peaceful protesters just standing there. But I mean, at the same time, if Trump walked outside to go to the church and just tried to peacefully walk down the street with all those peaceful protesters standing there, do you think he would ever be able to make it?
I mean, probably with a security detail.
But without the security detail was there helping him, and that's what they did. They threw tear gas to get all the peaceful people away. But like, I'm just saying, like, if the peaceful people were all standing there and Trump wanted to peacefully walk to the church, would he have ever been able to do it?
Wouldn't it just be, if you're concerned about that, wouldn't it just be better to not walk to the church? How important is walking to the church to where you have to actually tear gas peaceful people?
I don't think that it was ever a good idea to do that, but I'm just saying, would he have been able to peacefully walk to the church? Probably not.
I think he would have enough security that he could get there if they needed to.
And he did.
Well, yeah, but he could get gassing like a huge amount of people. It wasn't like there was one. It wasn't like there was one person coming at him and like he like went after him. I mean, it was.
I mean, that's the thing is, they could have laid out a perimeter, a pretty well defined perimeter, then kept protesters out of a certain area. And instead they, 10 minutes before he wanted to walk over to the church, they just, tear gassed a bunch of people and chased everyone out of the area, people that were legally and, rightfully so protesting. It was quite the spectacle of government force for no reason other than a stupid photo op from a church that absolutely hated seeing the photo op. I mean,
I also think that the photo op was the reason for all of the tear gas is kind of just inflated, where we've seen tear gas on the streets of pretty much every major city, and there was probably going to be tear gas on the streets of DC with what was happening outside of the White House that night. So blaming it on Trump and the White House is kind of just inflating. And I think that's kind of what the whole media has been doing the past 4 years, is just inflating every little thing he's done. And if you were to put those things that he's doing in any other president we've had before him, as in Obama, Bush, they wouldn't really put it in such a bad way.
I mean, tear gassing protesters so a guy could pose. I'm pretty sure that's what, like, I think there were reports that leaked out that that's why it happened, like from actual sources. I don't think it was just speculation.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing otherwise going on that was being done by the protesters to warrant said tear gassing at that time. There was no curfew being broken. Usually that's a justification for unleashing the tear gas,
which is a terrible justification in itself, but
right. I've been out protesting. I've been tear gassed. We got away pretty quick, but it sucks. But it was for curfew reasons. That's their excuse. They don't usually unleash the tear gas until the curfew's long past. So it's
unless it's getting rowdy. I don't know if it was getting rowdy. I don't know. I really don't know the situation.
Literally just people on the street. I mean, it happened on live TV.
So let's assume for a second that it was not getting rowdy and that it was expressly for the photo op. Is that terrible? Is that excusable? Authoritarian? Not authoritarian?
That's not a good idea. It's not a good look. It's bad. I know like the label on this whole podcast, Trump friendly libertarian, makes it seem like I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not.
Well,
really,
we agreed on the label.
Yeah, we did. But I'm not a Trump supporter. I didn't vote for Trump, and I don't plan to go out to vote for Trump. I don't have a Trump sign in my yard, but like, I don't have the orange man bad vibe that everyone else seems to have.
Would you think Trump friendly is an accurate description?
I mean, as opposed to Trump hostile, or
yeah, I mean, I would think I consider myself hostile to Trump. I'd consider myself hostile to Obama. I'd consider myself hostile to most politicians.
I guess I'm hostile to all politicians in a sense, but I'm just not. I see what's been going on in the media and across just the mainstream press, and I think that sometimes I find myself backing up Trump in some certain stances, and that's where the friendly comes along.
So what do you think's been going on in the media?
I think that they're trying to get their foot back in the door with the Biden administration.
The entire media?
I mean, I think that they're part of some establishment that was running for many years before, and Trump is breaking it up.
Would that include what major news networks would that include? Like, let's stick to CNN, MSNBC, Fox News.
Fox News, CNN, NBC.
But Fox News is generally
CNN, ABC, NBC. Fox
News is generally pretty pro-Trump.
New York Times.
I mean, they have them on Fox and Friends all the time. Like
it's a ploy to just kind of just satisfy a little bit of the people in the neocon side.
I mean, they were really promoting him like for a while. I mean, it's a pretty bad ploy if you're trying to take someone down.
The only person on Fox News that I see like actually as like a pro-Trump guy is Tucker Carlson.
Sean Hannity's not pro-Trump?
I guess. I don't really watch much news and TV, but I get most of my shit on Twitter. But
I mean, in the people on Fox and Friends, I don't know their names. I just know their faces because that's like Trump's favorite show, that morning show. I mean, they're pretty pro-Trump.
Probably. But I mean, in general, like they're just part of the whole mainstream media complex.
But they say opposite things from what a lot of the other media is saying. I mean, like if you're looking like MSNBC versus Fox, like left and right there, I mean, they're not parroting the same narratives.
If you're on the airwaves, you're probably following the establishment's rules of what you can and can't say and do.
So is Tucker Carlson following this?
Yeah, and I've said it before. I don't know how long he's going to be still on the television.
I mean, like, if their whole plan is to, like, let's say Fox News' whole plan is to disrupt Trump or bring upon the establishment or something like that, why would they put...
I don't think it's like every single person in Fox News plan as a whole.
But is it the management at Fox News' plan?
It's, yeah, maybe just the executives behind it. I don't know.
But then why would they put Tucker Carlson in their, like, prime time hour?
I don't know, because he gets the most views on any television show on any, like, more than Super Bowl.
But if you really had like a plan, like they were like, okay, we're going to take Trump down, wouldn't you think they'd want to promote someone in like their most visible news hour that would be anti-Trump?
Maybe.
Well, then again, Tucker Carlson has been argued to constantly lie so much that he can't be believed, and so therefore his statements can't be defamatory. So there is that.
They did say that. Fox did say that in a defamation lawsuit. I mean, it's just them trying to craft a defense, but
they won it.
Okay, so back to the protest a little bit. back to the protest a little bit. What's your take from a libertarian perspective on the BLM protests?
So in the first week or two, I was very excited. I was watching up at night, watching all of the riots, watching, everything happen and unfold. And I was like, all right, looks like a good changing point for America. And then I started realizing, like, this kind of seems a little shady, because every single major company, every single lifelong politician was backing this movement, and it just didn't seem right. And then you see it's, people getting beat up over their property, and they're not, I don't know. I just don't. I think it evolved into something, and it just completely lost the plot. And now it's just a bunch of anti-Trump, anti-capitalist people out on the streets, anti-fascist, as they say. And if you don't agree with them, you're a fascist.
Do you disagree with them on police brutality?
No. I mean, I think police brutality is a problem. So I just don't think that the way they're going about it is the way to do it.
What's the way they're going about it?
They're just going into the street, stopping people's cars, attacking the people if they don't want to go in their way. Like, if you're against them, they're going to attack you. It's simple as that. Like, if you don't
think that's
agree,
what the majority are like?
Huh?
Do you think that's what the majority are like?
I think it's a lot of mob mentality when there's large groups. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that'll happen in any large group. But do you think the majority of BLM protesters are looking to use violence against people at protests?
No.
What percent would you have an estimate on any percentage on that?
5 to 10.
So do you think that's a reason to reject the movement as a whole?
No, but I mean, I think, like, if you just go to, I don't know, I guess they updated their website. The movement, blacklivesmatter.org.
That's an organization.
That's the organization behind the movement, right?
I wouldn't say so. It's just a organization that calls themselves that. I don't think every protester is out there being like motivated by this organization. I think a lot of people were just showing up because that's what they wanted to protest police brutality. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this organization. I mean, from what I can tell, they took kind of the hashtag, made an organization. They essentially collect money, block grant it to kind of local organizations, and that's about all I can figure from this blacklivesmatter.com group. But I think a lot of people are just showing up. They are wanting police brutality to end. I know things do turn into violence, rioting, especially when provoked. Cops tend to do a lot of provoking, launching tear gas into crowds, and spending all their time trying to beat up people that are just standing in the street outside of a police station. Well, the target's getting ransacked really isn't doing much. You're essentially allowing riots to happen so you can go bully people that are holding signs on the street. I don't
condone any businesses getting ransacked, and it seems like that's kind of just hand in hand with this movement.
I wouldn't say it's hand in hand. I think there's some people taking advantage of it. There's the whole idea of group
there's
mentality.
Anti-lockdown movements going on, and there wasn't really any businesses getting ransacked at those. It was weird how that was happening.
Have you ever seen like the celebrations after like a Stanley Cup victory or something like that? When we were at UConn, we won the national championship. Did you see people put a pole through windows and stuff like that? That wasn't.
There's a lot of shit going on there, but it's related. It wasn't even on the same
Well, it's not
level.
on the same scale because it's a gigantic nationwide protest, but there's the issue of group mentality in the first place. But I don't think that's a reason to reject the movement as a whole. I would say, if anything, as libertarians who are against police brutality and the things that the movement is claiming to stand for, I think we should be looking to influence it rather than reject it.
I honestly, I look at the movement, and I made this analogy a couple times, and I see the Nazis versus Stalin. You know, I see the fascist authoritarian police against the communist, socialist, Stalinists in the streets. And
I mean, I don't think a lot of
the stand back and stand out of it and say, I don't want to support either of these people.
But the main point of the movement wasn't communism or Stalinism or something like that.
It's been completely co-opted.
Not completely. If you went out to a protest, I don't think you'd see, like, if you talk to a bunch of people. I mean, I haven't been to one myself.
Get punched in the face for wearing this hat in protest, and it just says "Make taxation theft again."
I'm saying if you talk to
somebody who
people,
doesn't even read it, they would just like see the red in the font, and they'd be like, "Ugh," and get so angry.
I don't think you're gonna hear a bunch of people that are like, "Oh, I'm very motivated by Karl Marx's books." I think you're gonna see a bunch of people that are pissed off about people getting killed by cops.
Yeah, because they don't read books. They're just
so they're not well-read Marxists.
Yes, if you're well-read, you're not a Marxist.
I mean, there's well-read Marxists. I mean, they're bad, but they're there.
Yeah, I just don't think that if you're really a smart, educated person, you're not a communist.
Okay. I mean, I'm not a fan of Marx. I think you would know that, but I don't think that's what the movement is based around. It hasn't been a bunch of people rallying in the streets saying communism now. I mean, obviously, there's communists there.
I've seen videos of large people walking down the street, like,
and I've seen
wealth.
I've seen libertarians there. I've seen chapters of BLM talking to Spike Cohen and endorsing Joe Jorgensen.
I've seen a whole lot of crap.
Well, yeah, but there's people in every movement that are going to be terrible. I mean, if you went to an anti-war movement, like during the Iraq War protests, you're going to see like Marxists there. If you go to a gun protest, you're like a pro-gun protest, you're going to see a bunch of Trumpers there. Like every movement's going to have its shitty people, but it's what it's based around.
Right.
And I don't think they're going to be breaking into random buildings, taking everything out of it.
But I don't think that's what's happening on a major scale. I mean, yeah, it happens, but there was that whole study that there was that whole study that 93% of BLM protests were entirely peaceful, and for one to be called not peaceful, like someone being arrested for like knocking over a garbage can would make the entire protest not peaceful. Yeah, like for someone arrested for like any property crime, like let's say one person at some giant protest broke a car window and got arrested, that would automatically make the protest not peaceful, even if 99.9% of the protest was peaceful.
I agree that there's majority are peaceful. Like Milford, Connecticut, that's where I'm from. There's tons of peaceful protests and there's never riots. I'm sure there's small towns like that across the country having them, and there's no riots and there's no problems. But you know, in the major cities, seems to be some issues.
I mean, I've seen peaceful ones around where I am, but even if you just key in on the ones in small towns, why can't we zero in on that? A group of people that should be ripe for the picking about libertarianism, kind of telling them about like, okay, here's what we can do to stop these issues with cops, instead of just rejecting them and being like, oh, they're a bunch of Marxists and fuck them. Like, why not appeal to them?
I mean, I'm for it.
Okay.
I think from here we should move on to the whole QAnon.
I had that on my listing actually.
So because it blends together in the whole. You want to, you know, take these people by the hand that hate the cops and want to, you know, end this police brutality and lead them to libertarianism and say, you know, this is the way. But, you know, if you kind of looked into what the whole QAnon thing is, it's a lot of people kind of questioning government as a whole, saying, holy shit, this I mean, yeah, it kind of, if you look into a lot of what the mainstream news is saying, it's about this secret cabal of elite pedophiles that are Satanists eating children or something like that.
But isn't there a lot of that about that?
No, I mean, there's nothing really about that if you go into the actual leaks. But what I'm saying is most of the followers are really just thinking, holy shit, the government is this corrupt group. We need to, get rid of this. This whole system is bad. It would be nice if we as libertarians would, take them by the hand and say, hey, you're right. But, maybe we shouldn't lie to them about. Maybe we shouldn't hail this guy as the leader of it, and we shouldn't hail religions and stuff like that, but we should agree that yes, government is corrupt, and this is why.
Well, yeah, government's corrupt, but we don't need some false narrative about Trump saving us from the satanic pedophiles. And there is stuff about satanic child abductions in there. I'm on a website right now, Q drop number 29, November 1st, 2017. The child abductions for satanic rituals are paused. They're talking about how they're taking down the Satanists. The first thing was a direct quote.
Wow. I mean, we have seen a lot of, trafficking schemes get busted in the past couple of years, and a lot of these major players like Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein,
there's definitely
Maxwell, and a lot of stuff happening, and a lot of it is what this whole movement alludes to, and I think that is really what the government and the media really want to shut down, is people thinking about that, and people kind of thinking, holy shit, maybe the government's corrupt, maybe these are a bunch of fucking pedophile sickos. They want to stop people from thinking about that.
What about the fact that it's pretty clearly bullshit? I mean, it's some random guy who started posting on 4chan.
I mean, is it bullshit that the government's corrupt?
No, but it's not bullshit that the government's corrupt, but it's bullshit that there's some random dude posting on 4chan talking about how Trump is saving us from the satanic pedophiles.
I mean, there's very little that has to do with satanic pedophiles. A lot of it is just drops of news articles with just words and riddles and just random shit where people put together what they think it means.
But there's drops about how there were satanic, evil pieces of shit controlling our country. And
I mean, Marina Abramovic is very tight with Bill Gates, and she's a Satanist, and a lot of Satanists are they're actual Satanists. There's a Church of Satan. There's
Satanists. Do you know what LaVeyan Satanists are?
I don't know, but they're called Satanists. You're saying that there's not Satanists.
I'm saying that you don't know what Satanists are.
They're tight with their government. They're tight with their government.
LaVeyan Satanists, who are the Church of Satan, they're atheists.
Yeah.
They just have a whole philosophy about living your life the way you want to live it.
Have you seen any of the pictures from a Marina Abramovic dinner?
I think I've seen it a while back, but that doesn't give me a reason
Google
to
Marina Abramovic dinner and just look at the.
I know it was some weird art thing. I'm not up on that shit, but
very, very artful. It's good night. Yeah. Halloween. It's Halloween. It's good night for a Marina Abramovic dinner.
There's some weird shit people do, but that doesn't mean some random dude posting on 4chan who said in his
I'm not saying that everything he says is true. I think that you can take these people who are starting to question everything they believed for the past life they had. They're starting to say, holy shit, this government's corrupt, the media is corrupt, Hollywood's corrupt, and it is, and they should.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can try to reach them, but you don't need to feed into delusions. What do you think this guy is actually someone with inside information?
I think he's a smart dude. He's a really smart dude.
He's a smart dude, and I think he's a smart dude in that he can convince a bunch of people to believe that all this stuff is real. But do you believe he's actually feeding inside information through 4chan and 8chan or whatever he's on now? I know he moved to another site. Do you think he's actually legit?
So, who I really think QAnon is, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I did some research, but I'm really thinking that QAnon is linked to Barron Trump.
I know we were joking about that the other day.
It's not a joke, dude. It's not a joke.
I mean, it's
have you ever seen the picture of him with the expert shirt on? You know what that alludes to, right?
But seriously,
Baron Trump is Q.
Do you think
I just dropped a bomb on the fucking Fakertarians podcast right now?
Do you think Q is actually
first,
legit?
ABC News, NBC News, pump it. Baron Trump is QAnon.
You know I'm not letting you out of this question, though, until you answer it.
Wait, what's the question?
Do you think Q is realistically is actually someone with inside information, or is it some dude shit posting on 4chan?
Probably some dude shit posting on 4chan. But I mean, like, he's not out of line. He's doing some great work. I mean, he got a whole fucking congressional hearing on people condemning his conspiracy theory. Have you heard that before on any of the other conspiracy theories that are going around? I haven't. Like, I've been a 9/11 truther for a long time, and like, where was the congressional hearing on 9/11 truthers need to stop? We need to bipartisan condemn these 9/11 truthers.
But do you think if he's making a bunch of people believe something that's not true about how there's satanic pedophiles? I know it's not, these people aren't specifically mentioned in the Q drops, but there's people that think like Ellen DeGeneres eats kids.
She probably does.
Ellen DeGeneres. There was a point where we thought Oprah was arrested.
Actually, the first and second QAnon drops or QAnon.
I mean, there
drops
was
ever.
some pretty major arrests under Trump's administration.
Right, but the first and second QAnon drops ever, we're talking about how Hillary Clinton was detained, how there were already extradition motions underway, and how she was going to get her passport flagged. That was obviously total bullshit. And the fact people already, you can cite Epstein.
Curiously wonder, though, if Trump wasn't in office, would Epstein have been arrested?
Yeah, I think he would have. I mean, the evidence was already there. There had been obviously there was the Palm Beach County case in like 2007, and then ever since then there had been a bunch of civil suits. Like even pre-Trump, I think there were civil suits like 2013, 2014, 2015.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't
has been in works for a very long time. It's not
apparently
suddenly under Trump it's something that's been under works for a long time. It was
like early 2000, I want to say 2002 or 2004, after some auction on some mansion down in Florida between Trump and Epstein. Trump ended up actually winning the auction or something. And then I guess 4 weeks later, there was a report that Epstein was, dealing with underage kids or something like that. And that's where Epstein ended up first having some legal issues with this whole thing. And it just happened to be a couple weeks after he had a giant dispute with the guy that's in the Oval Office when he got arrested and hung himself in a prison.
Let's even say that.
I mean, it's a coincidence, maybe, but I mean, I don't know. It's crazy. Crazy world we live in.
Let's even say that Trump ratted on him because they had an argument or something, okay? Yeah. Wouldn't there be a problem that Trump had known about that for a while in the first place? Because they were close. I mean, they hung out together.
Right now, it sounds like there's a problem that a lot of people have known it for a long time.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's been pretty open knowledge. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not like Epstein being like touching kids and shit. That's not anything new. I mean, like I said, there's been all those civil suits for a while, and there was the initial criminal case back over a decade ago.
Yeah, which just so happened to be a couple weeks after the dispute with Donald. It's just a coincidence. I know it's crazy, but
I don't know about the dispute, but even if
Google it happened.
Okay. Even if Trump somehow ratted on him, that has nothing to do with whether the QAnon guy is real.
It doesn't.
But I mean, when you look down into it, QAnon really is just a rehashing of a lot of the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is just fabricated text. It's not being applied to the the Jews more so, but to the left or the establishment, and that's really all QAnon is just this modern day something that actually fed into the Holocaust. That's all QAnon really boils down to. It's not anything new or special. It's just a rehash of an old, essentially ancient, not ancient, but old shitpost. It's basically what it boils down to. To see that rehashed again, but presented in the way that it is now versus how it's been presented in the past.
I mean, it's
But
pretty much
definitely
just
something to look into is the protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Yeah, I will, but I mean, it's basically just a chain of messages where they just, a lot of it's just a link to a news article that was released that day about something, and then just like a bunch of words.
But it's supposed to be all connected, and is
it? Like,
yeah, that's the whole. Why is he's not just posting random articles? This isn't like great uncle's Facebook or something.
I mean, it's just, is my Twitter account all connected, or are all my tweets connected? No.
He makes predictions, and he alleges that like the storm is coming, and there's this whole big thing. It's not just some. I mean, if it wasn't about predictions and this whole thing being connected, it would just be like someone's grandpa shitposting on Facebook.
And it wouldn't have to go to Congress and get condemned by bipartisan. I
mean, that was probably mainly like what were you gonna say?
And just the whole way it's portrayed by the media is false. It's just not the way. Like you read these articles, you just Google QAnon, and it's just 3 Google pages of these articles that make it seem like it's just like this out of control, violent, white supremacist group of Trump supporting Nazis that want to.
I mean, it is based off of Nazi propaganda.
I wouldn't say they're Nazis. I just think they're dumb Trump supporters that are gullible. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's some Nazi people in there. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure you could pick some out, but I don't think I wouldn't say it's predominantly Nazis or something like that, but it can still be a dangerous movement in a bad way.
Oh, so like when 5 to 10% of the violent people on the streets are bad.
No, because it's not something it's based around,
right?
No, because it's based around this like an idea that's not true. It's not based around stopping police brutality. It's based around
the government is corrupt, and we gotta end that shit.
It's not just government is corrupt. It's based around
what it's about. It's not.
No, it's about satanic pedophiles. It's not
the satanic pedophiles.
That's what
the government is corrupt. There's a cabal of elite government, Bilderberg group kind of thing, like a bunch of establishment folks that are controlling the narrative on the airwaves of what you hear on the news, and they're controlling the narrative. And
why is he talking about satanic ritual abductions?
Why do they like Satanists? I don't know. That's just what they like.
But do you think the government's performing satanic ritual child abductions?
It might be. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't put it past them, John. The government has done some fucked up things. Like, you look at what, just like in Ireland this past week, they just voted to bury the documents for another 30 years of the mother and baby houses where basically the government and the church stole babies from mothers, and they just so happened to end up in mass graves and sewers. And like, you can't put it past governments from doing fucked up things, John. They do.
No, I don't do that at all. I would agree, government does fucked up things, but I don't think we should be taking some 4chan shit poster and starting an entire ideology around it.
I mean, government does some pretty fucked up things. I don't know if you've ever done project management. That's a very big project, and it usually doesn't go very well. You got to look at some to some extent reasonableness, and it's really hard to get hundreds and or even a million people on board all together with one project to do something. You know, you can get a few people, but you can't get an entire, you know, government on it to do something. It's
I completely
the rules of project management would dictate that it's essentially impossible.
And that's why it's like, I would love to see what it would look like if something like Jo Jorgensen would win the election. It's like, what would she be able to get done in the government? You know, would she be able to make it so that she's not a statist in the eyes of pure libertarians, or would they look at some of the things that happened in her administration and be like, wow, she's a statist because this happened while she's president?
Do you think she's anyway? I don't think she's comparable to Trump at all.
I don't think she's comparable to Trump. I'm just saying I don't think that she would be able to get done what she's promising because of the rules of project management.
There might be some things, but she'd definitely do a lot more than Trump has done.
I mean, as executive, you know, as somebody in the executive branch, you have the control over a lot of departments. I mean, that's essentially what executive orders do, is they issue directives to departments that the executive branch controls. There's a lot of things that can be done through just that method. It's just that a lot of people don't do that. You know, Trump literally takes, you know, immigration policy and bends it to the, you know, essentially the worst means through those kind of orders.
Okay, so
I just would love to know how you guys would think a Biden presidency would help.
I'm not,
you know,
a fan of Biden.
I'm not a fan of Biden.
I know you're not.
I don't think a Biden presidency would necessarily help us. I think it could prevent us from going in a, you know, direction that I see and don't like.
Do you think it's less authoritarian?
Not necessarily, no.
You think it's more authoritarian?
Not necessarily either.
I think it's more
authoritarian in different ways, because, you know, it kind of separating kids at the border, sending them back to Mexico when they're not even from Mexico, doing things.
What was the difference between what Obama was doing and what Trump was doing?
Well, there are some differences. Yes, Obama was the deporter in chief. He has deported many people.
And why is Biden going to make it any better?
He's not. He's going to return to policies, but
he's going to bring back what we had, just the establishment. Right. I mean, it's not that Trump has made it any better when it comes to immigration, but with some other things like
more drone bombings,
tax cuts,
tariffs.
Tax cuts are great.
But but I mean, the tariffs essentially canceled out the tax cuts. So,
I mean, I'm not paying for them,
right? But other people are, and
it's
not supposed to. What? You know, no, your customers here.
Well, I guess
you're paying for tariffs.
You're right.
Yeah. So
okay.
Well, from what I understand, we got to wrap up here pretty quick.
Yeah, that's what I was saying in the chat, because I got somewhere I got to be. But thank you, Jeff, for coming on with us today. We'd be happy to have you on again sometime.
Yeah.
Sure. And, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap up?
I just don't think that. I mean, first off, I'd like to say I'm not a Trump supporter, but I just think that a Trump presidency is definitely better than a Biden presidency. But that's all.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on again.
Wait. Whoa. The most important thing for how many viewers we got here? I don't know. The most important thing for anybody listening right now is to go out and buy Bitcoin, because you need it. You need it. You need it in this world. Buy Bitcoins. Hold on to it. Don't sell it. People are going to try to take it from you. People are going to try to sell you all these other coins, but just hold on to your Bitcoins for a very long time.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for watching today. Thanks again to Jeff for being on, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Yep, see ya. Thanks, Jeff.